Okay, good morning, brothers and sisters in the Dhamma.
Morning.
Hope everyone have a good sleep yesterday. Welcome to MSBS Dhamma Sharing Online. This event is jointly organized by Mahasatipatthana Buddhist Society Klang and Mudita Buddhist Society Klang. Today is Saturday, 18 July 2020, and the time is 9:01. Okay, this event is currently live, is shared on Facebook, and YouTube will be later on. I'm Terence, your host, and joining in the team today is only Sister Anjif. The rest, they have their other activities at Buddhist centers, other Buddhist centers. Okay, a few housekeeping before we go on. Okay, while you are reading this, I'll unmute you all first, yeah? Sister Anjif?
Yeah.
Can you help to read this one? So I mute them.
Oh, okay. There are some little rules that we follow for the Zoom session. You have to display your name so that Bante will know who is asking any questions or giving any comments. And please make sure your audio is muted at all times. Otherwise, there'll be disturbances, there'll be interruption in the sound. And if you wish to ask a question, you may type your question at the chat box, or you can ask verbally by raising your hand. And the moderator will then unmute you so that you can talk to Bante. And then remember to turn off your mic again after you finish. And also please follow the rule, one person to speak at a time. I think that's about it. Thank you. Terence, over to you.
Okay, this is the schedule for today. After this, Bante will have the sharing of homage of the Buddha and the taking of the 5 precepts. And this one is the rest time and the lunch time. So this week we'll we'll admit people 15 minutes earlier, so I can share the link. So I'm not so rushed to share the link to YouTube and Facebook. Sorry. Okay, the room will open at 12:45 p.m. and 4:15 p.m. Yeah, please take note. Sister Anjif.
Yes.
Okay, will be having them at 12:45, yeah, 15 minutes,
Yes,
not 10, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Next.
Okay, as mentioned last week, MSBS is fortunate to have Phra Adhibalo, popularly known as Phra Goh. Bante was born on July 14, 1945, a few days ago.
1945?
1985, sorry. Not mindful enough, sorry, Bante. Bante had his bhikkhu ordination into the Theravada tradition of Thai Dhamma sect at Santi Forest Monastery in Johor, Malaysia in 2008. Bante spent his first 5 rains retreat at various forest monasteries in Malaysia and Thailand. He is currently Vice President of Palelai Buddhist Temple, Singapore. Bante, you want to share something about yourself?
Oh, what else you want me to share?
Anything? Anything that I've left out?
Yeah, so like what I mentioned last week, most of the meditation techniques is greatly influenced by Sri Lankan tradition method. I learned from the branch of this late Venerable Amata Gavesi from Sri Lanka. Yeah, so I learned from another center in Singapore, and his students taught the technique. So very keen, right, to share this method. So when I go to the Thai tradition is more, how we call it, flexible. They don't have like a rigid syllabus, like maybe certain maybe say Burmese tradition, they have to follow certain syllabus, have to have these interviews and follow certain steps. Whereas in the Thai tradition is more flexible, right? So we can sort of practice and improve on our existing kind of methodology, or even some teachers, they even sort of create or invent their own methods. So if you see the Thai, some of the Thai monks, they sort of invent, the 7 hand movements, that kind of mindfulness practices. And I even met a monk who invented a floor mat, 7 footsteps. They ask you to walk 7 steps, and ask you to turn back and walk 7 steps. So they have a lot of creativity. So yeah, so this is the period where a lot of innovations, in the 1800s and 1900s, lots of innovations. And so for me, it's good to do research and go back to the suttas, go back to the original teachings and try to find the authentic method that is beneficial to that all systems can at least benefit. Yep.
Okay. So, which centers did Bante stay in Malaysia?
In
Other
Malaysia,
than
okay.
Santi. Other than Santi.
Yeah. The other centers I've been is like either Katina kind of celebration or short stay, like very, very short stay, not really long. For longer stays is mostly at Santi Forest Monastery. That is like about 2 or 3 years. Then in Thailand also about 2 to 3 years, like that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Bante. Okay,
Alright.
the title of today's talk is Introduction to Meditation 2.0. So now let us put our palms together and welcome Bante. Over to you, Bante.
All right.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
So is there like the slide? Okay, all right.
Okay.
So
You
now
do
we
the
chant
homage and 5 precepts, yeah.
the homage to the Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. The 3 refuges. So for the Buddhists, you can take the refuge, right, and the 5 precepts, right? Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dhammang saranang gacchami, Sanghang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami. And the 5 precepts. Yeah. Panatipada veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Adinadana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Kamesu miccācara veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Musawada veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Suramiraya majjapamadatthana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, so this ends the 3 refuges and 5 precepts. So today we are going to talk about mindfulness. Right, so same name with your Buddhist society, right? Mahasatipatthana Buddhist Society. So today we are going to talk about mindfulness. I believe most of your members are very, very familiar with mindfulness. So this is just a bit of my sharing, a bit of my personal take, right? So now mindfulness is a very, very in thing, yeah, or it has been an in thing for quite some time. So there's a lot of coverage, right? A lot of these, like Time Magazine, a lot of these schools, workplaces. They have a lot of mindfulness workshops and courses. So it's a very sort of in and popular thing, right? Because the world is very stressful. A lot of people want to de-stress. So it can be a good thing. So if a person were to trace, right, the history of this mindfulness movement, you can trace back mainly attributed from the Burmese tradition, right? So they started these Vipassana movements, and the Westerners, they sort of incorporated and they started this mindfulness kind of revolution. Okay, so we are going to talk a bit about this mindfulness today, but before that, just to let you know, this PowerPoint slide is actually from my basic meditation course at Palelai. So if you see this QR code, it's actually the 8 lessons I have at Palelai Temple. So I think they might contain the slides of all the 8 lessons, right? So this is one of the lessons which I've been sharing. So I'm just repeating myself. Okay, all right, next. Okay, so if a person were to sort of check the history, right? I'm no Pali scholar, right? But sati means mindfulness, right? The Pali word is sati, right? So in the olden days, right, the Buddha's time, or even the pre-Buddha's time, pre-Buddhist religions and the culture, yeah, the language, maybe sati, right? In Sanskrit, it's spelled in Romanized SMRTI. I have no idea how to pronounce it. So I'll just use the Pali pronunciation. So for sati, a lot of people would take it as memory. A lot of people would take it as memory. So that would be the original definition. So the original definition is for sati means memory. So example would be this conversation between this Vasakara, his Brahmin minister, and the Buddha. So they were discussing what is considered to be a wise person, right? What is a wise person? So this Vasakara, this Brahmin, right? He's told the Buddha, oh, if a person is mindful, that means he can remember, he can remember what is being said long ago and able to repeat. So this is a quality which is very important, especially when relaying messages, and also for religious persons, right? Like if they want to memorize the Vedas, or even for the Buddhist monks, they want to memorize the suttas. So this was like an important kind of quality. So this was sati, right? It's defined as memory last time. Okay, next. Okay, then the next definition of sati can also mean carefulness, precision, right? Precision and carefulness. So if let's say, this is one example. If when the Buddha, before he was enlightened, right, we call him a bodhisattva, and he was practicing this asceticism, and he was describing his ascetic practices to his monks, right? So he told Sariputta, he was very careful and was stepping, when walking forward and backward. He won't sort of hurt any creatures, right? Very careful on what's on the ground. So have such awareness, and when you walk, very careful. So so this is another definition of mindfulness. But today we are going to talk a bit more on the different kinds of, we call it spiritual kinds of mindfulness. So like the first two examples which I gave earlier on carefulness and this memory, these are more towards, we call it circular mindfulness, right? Circular mindfulness. After the Buddha got enlightened, right, he coined a new term called Sammasati, or right mindfulness. So there's a difference, right? So later on we'll talk about right mindfulness, right? But before that, I'm going to give a few counter examples of what is this circular mindfulness versus right mindfulness, right? So in the Eightfold Path, we know that right mindfulness is part of the Eightfold Path, the path leading to the end of suffering, right? So if, let's say, a person were to be ideally, very good with memory and very good with carefulness, does that make them the call it the right practitioner of mindfulness, of right mindfulness? So I give a few examples. Let's say the Buddha's disciple, one of them is Venerable Ananda. Yeah, Venerable Ananda. So he's one contrasting example of a person with very good memory. Very good memory. Yeah, so the Buddha's time, yeah, Venerable Ananda, he is the foremost in memory. So basically, he memorized all the scriptures, right, all the teachings of the Buddha. Most of the time, he was around the Buddha, right? So he's like the tape recorder, whatever the Buddha teach, and he sort of absorbed in his brain, right? So when he's not around, and when Buddha gave a sermon, and whenever he meets the Buddha again, he requested the Buddha to repeat the sermon to him so that he can remember. So, so even though, right, Venerable Ananda memorized all the teachings, he was the last of the 500 arahants that got enlightened, right? So in the after the Buddha passed away, there was this thing called the First Buddhist Council, right? The First Buddhist Council, where this another monk, Venerable Mahakassapa, right? The Arahant that is foremost in asceticism, right? He held the First Buddhist Council, so he chaired the First Buddhist Council, but he has a criteria: only enlightened beings can enter the council meeting, right? So before the Buddha passed away, Venerable Ananda haven't reached enlightenment yet. If I'm not wrong, he's the most he reached this Sotapanna, right? First level of enlightenment, not full enlightenment yet. So it is after when the Buddha passed away and when he received this notice that there's a First Buddhist Council, then it's like, hey, he's the only one that memorized all the teachings, right? So he has to be at the First Buddhist Council, but he cannot enter unless he got enlightened. So he has to practice very hard, yeah, practice until he reached enlightenment, which was the night before, right? Before he lie down to sleep, then he sort of got enlightened at the last moment, and is able to enter the meeting, right? So there's a very clear, it's a good example that this mindfulness is very different from memory, right? Right mindfulness very different from memory, right? So although mindfulness can be equated as memory, yeah, that's one of the definition. But when we talk about the spiritual right mindfulness, the kind of right mindfulness that can overcome desire, right? So this is very different from memory. And of course, another good case study to show that theoretical knowledge does not equate to spiritual progress, right? So like Venerable Ananda, he can memorize all the teachings, but he's still not enlightened. So until the last moment, right? Whereas most of the other monks that were already admitted, most of them, they just hear one sermon from the Buddha and just practice, and they got enlightened. So they don't have to memorize all the teachings, right? They don't have to be theoretically knowledgeable, right? So this is one case example. So another case example, another contrast would be this Venerable Chula Pantaka, which I mentioned in my previous last week session, right? There's this monk who is very intellectually, we call it disabled, intellectually challenged. Yeah, he cannot memorize things. Right? He has very difficult, he has this difficulty in memorizing scriptures. So his story is something like this. He has an elder brother called Mahapantaka, yeah, which is very good, with memory also. So he ordained and become a monk. He's very learned, very intelligent person. And this younger brother, this Chula Pantaka, wanted to ordain and follow his brother. Right. So when he ordained, he followed his brother into the monastery where most of his fellow peers were the reciter kind. That means they have to memorize scripture and recite. So he cannot follow, right? So his difficulty was when he learned one verse, right? When he wanted to learn the second verse, he forgotten the first verse, right? So this is his issue. So when he wanted to go back to learn the first verse, then he forget the second verse. So basically he cannot progress, right? He cannot learn anything new. So after some time, yeah, the monks in that particular community decided to ask him to leave the monastery, since he cannot progress, they can't help him anymore. Right. So this Venerable Chula Pandaka was very upset. Right. When he's outside the monastery, he was sort of like crying. He broke down, right, crying. So the Buddha happened to walk past. Yeah, the Buddha happened to walk past him and asked, inquired what happened. Right. So this Venerable Chula Pandaka told the Buddha what happened. He was rejected by this community. He is useless. He cannot memorize scriptures. So the Buddha said, no, he's still a monk. Yeah, that means he's still the Buddha's disciple. So he asked this Venerable Chula Pandaka to follow him. The Buddha will give him a special assignment, special kind of job to do, right? So the Buddha asked him to go to his room and do some cleaning. Depending on the different version of scripture, some say clean his room, some say clean his own face. So there are different versions. So the Buddha gave him a white cloth, right? So it's a bit like the Karate Kid. They do the cleaning and the wax on and the wax off, right? So his instruction is just to think of one word. Yeah, so you don't have to memorize long scripture. So just one word, white color, white. And because the cloth is white, that's why I just think of white, right? So you clean white, 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 white. So after some time, when you clean and you sort of turn over the cloth, right? When you clean on something for a long time, the cloth will get dirty, right? So the cloth no longer got white, right? It got dirt, maybe turn brown, turn black, whatever it is. So at that moment, right, he got some realization, and he even got enlightened. So this is the another case example of mindfulness not equating to memory. So a person with very poor memory can also get enlightenment, right? A person with poor memory can get enlightenment. It means right mindfulness is not memory. It's not the kind of circular memory where you memorize a lot of stuff. So nowadays, a lot of school kids are very good with memory, like Malaysian, Singaporean, those top students, A students, they are very good with regurgitation. Our education system, right? They just memorize a lot of stuff in the textbooks, and they, regurgitate how they can write word for word in the answers, for the answers. So they can just basically like become a photocopy machine for in the brain. So this is memory, right? So now we're going to talk about carefulness or precision. So again, in the why do I need to mention this example? Because these are very common misconceptions even in the Buddhist community, right, about mindfulness. So things like if a person forgets something, then sometimes people will comment, "Oh, no mindfulness," right? Then if let's say you walk and you're not careful, you fall down, no mindfulness, right? You forget to bring your keys, no mindfulness, right? So, what kind of definition of mindfulness are we talking about? And in the Buddhist community, are we overemphasizing on this circular mindfulness over, right, spiritual mindfulness, right? So what are we encouraging, right, in the Buddhist community, right? So now we're going to talk about carefulness, right? So I give a circular example. So this is from the scripture, right? So now I give a circular example. Okay, let's say acrobat or gymnast, right? I believe maybe some of you watch the Olympic Games. You know, some of them do the gymnasts. They do all the somersaults. They walk on the poles, right? And that kind of stuff. So they need a lot of precision. They need to be very, very, very careful, right? Very careful. If not, right, they might trip and fall, have accident. They land on their bum, whatever it is. So they need to be very, very careful. So one example in the Olympic Games, for example, a certain team, right, a certain country, they perform their gymnastic on all their somersaults and their flips, and they get the score, right? So the judges will maybe give them maybe 9.997, for example, 9.97, very high score, right, near perfection. And another team, right, they announce 9.98 first prize. They got the gold. So this team that performed so well, only 9.97, for example, right? Then they got second place. So they get so upset, they cry, and they're unhappy. They didn't get first. So it's like wasted this chance to get a gold medal. So they only got silver medal. So are we aiming for this kind of mindfulness, this kind of precision and carefulness, where we still get emotionally upset over loss, right? Over not achieving, this kind of goals either. Oh, somebody started recording again. Is this a second kind recording? I can't see the screen now.
Something happened in Zoom.
Oh, something happened. Okay.
Send the message to Zoom first. I think Bante, you can continue.
Okay, I can continue. Right. So again, there are lots of articles, people doing a lot of critics now, comparing, right? So if let's say a person is very sharp in mindfulness, very careful, very precise, the mind is very clear, then they talk about different kinds of, let's say, not so wholesome kind of occupation. They talk about, let's say, if a person is a mercenary or killer or a burglar, for example, they also need to have, we call this environmental or situational kind of awareness. They need to be very aware, very alert, right? Very have a lot of attention to detail, right? If not, they'll get caught or killed, right? So are these kinds of qualities we want for this spiritual right mindfulness? If a person is, if that is considered right mindfulness, then why are they committing crimes? Why are they committing wrong things? Do they have this unwholesome state of mind, right? So we cannot equate these kind of secular qualities as right mindfulness, right? We cannot equate these kind of secular qualities as right mindfulness. However, I'm not saying all these things are bad, right? These are maybe necessary skill sets for your livelihood or for your life. It's good to be careful, right? Who wants to trip and fall? Who wants to forget something? It's useful. Of course, it can be trained in secular manners, right? So nowadays there are a lot of these therapies where they sort of maybe use, for example, video games, to treat certain maybe forgetfulness, train the cognitive functions of the brain, right? So again, this is religious kind of practice, right? But these are, we call it circular kind of mindfulness, right? So in Buddhism, we talk about moderation. If you have No, very good memory, very good precision. That's good, that's fine. But how about internally, right? Internally, what's your state of mind? What's your emotion? Is your intention pure, right? So we are going to talk about that, right? So the next slide, please. Oh, thanks for editing the PowerPoint slide. Okay, so again, most of the suttas I use are translations from Ajahn Thanisaro or this Ajahn Jeffrey, right? He's from the same Dhamma lineage. So most of the stuff is from his translations. So he happened to be the first Caucasian to go to Thailand to study the Thai exam, right? And take the exam in Thai language and pass all the ninth grade of Pali, that means the highest grade of Pali exam in Thailand in the Thai language. So he got his Chao Kun title and yeah, very intelligent and accomplished monk. Okay, so next. Okay, so I'm not going to use word for word for this Satipatthana Sutta. Right, I'm just going to highlight the main points because if I just flash the entire sutta, a lot of people will fall asleep. So I just I will just highlight the main points, right? So of course, if you do want to read the original sutta, it's very easy. You can find on Google, right? Just type 4 foundations of mindfulness, the sutta, and it will be there. Right. So again, right at the beginning of the sutta, right at the beginning. So they will mention what is the objective of the sutta. It's to overcome sorrow and lamentation. So this is the first objective, right? Disappearance of pain and distress. Yeah, same for the attainment of the right method, right? There are so many methods. So again, because this is right mindfulness, so this is the supposedly the right method. Then for the realization of unbinding. So if a person wants to transcend, right, these ups and downs of life, the vicissitudes of life, overcome this stress and suffering, then you sort of have to practice right mindfulness. Right. So if a person have the right understanding of what is right mindfulness, then they will know what to practice. Right. So in my stint in Thailand, right? When I was in Thailand, sometimes I stay in those rural forest monasteries, and of course, not every monk or not every practitioner is educated. Maybe they don't study, those basic Buddhism or whatever it is. So some of them might have the understanding, that mindfulness is equals to circular mindfulness, and they emphasize on practicing how to sharpen circular mindfulness. Or like, for example, if you walk, you must count how many steps you walk. Must remember, if you eat from your food, you must know how many spoonfuls you have taken. So they emphasize on memory. It's like having a track record, accounting. You must know everything in your brain. Must memorize. Must remember. Right. So they go to this extent. Right. So this is circular kind of mindfulness training. Okay. Okay. Next slide. Okay. So there are 4, right? 4 foundations of mindfulness. So there are 4 things to be mindful of. Right? There can be many things to be mindful of. A person can be mindful of the weather, mindfulness of their bank account, mindfulness of the stock market, right? Mindfulness, be mindful of their boss, their family member, whatever it is, right? So there are, when you talk about right mindfulness, there are just 4 things. 4 things to be mindful of. Mindful of your body, feelings, the mind, and the Dhamma. Of course, Ajahn Thanisaro translated as mental qualities. So again, different translators have different usage of words. Okay, so but a common term people use would be the Dhamma, right? Mindfulness of, or maybe sometimes use phenomenon, mindfulness of phenomenon. So these are the 4 things. 4 things to be mindful of. Okay, so the next slide, please. So we're going to first touch on mindfulness of the body, right? Mindfulness of the body. Okay, so there are 6 things being mentioned. 6 things being mentioned. So number 1 is mindfulness of your breathing. Number 2, mindfulness of your 4 postures, like sitting down, standing, walking and lying down. So these 4 postures. 3, mindfulness of your activities. So like talking, you must know you're talking. If you're eating, you must know you're eating, and so on and so forth. So these are the other activities aside from the 4 postures. So it's an extension of the 4 postures. And number 4, mindfulness of your body parts. So these are the things we've been doing in the previous session, right? So mindfulness of the human biology and anatomy, right? So number 5, the 4 elements, earth, fire, wind, water, and number 6, right? Stages of bodily decomposition. Okay, so I'm going to sort of go through them. So earlier on, we talked about the objective, right? The whole idea is to overcome suffering, right? Using the right method. So if we want to know what's the right method, or if we have the understanding that this is the right method that is not the ordinary, then we have to sometimes use a spectrum of case studies, case examples, and not follow the majority of the common practices. For example, mindfulness of breathing. A lot of people breathe, right? So is let's say, for example, exercising, we have the warm up and cool down kind of breathing. Is that the kind of breathing, that we should be doing for practicing of this breathing, mindfulness of breathing, right? So this is for one example. It's like process of elimination, and there's so many kinds of breathing meditation around. Maybe like qigong, maybe like yoga, etc., etc. So there are so many kinds of breath meditation, and of course sometimes the teacher or instructor will maybe give the objective right off from the bat, right from the start. They'll tell, oh, maybe this is for health. You do this breathing meditation for health, or you do this breathing meditation for long life, something like that. So the objective is very different, might be very different from this right mindfulness. So we are trying to find a transcendental kind of practice. So again, there are so many practices, and any object you take up, any practice you take up alone, right, can actually reach the goal. That means you don't have to try every one of them, right? You can just pick one that you like, right? So for example, breathing, again, there are extremes, right? Extremes. For example, in the Buddha's time, when he was practicing asceticism, right, this torturing of himself, the breath can be practiced in an extreme manner too. A lot of people think, oh, breathing meditation very safe. Breathing meditation very safe. Just breathe only, you are right? Just breathe only. So it depends on your frame of mind or your understanding, right? If you have certain philosophy that is not grounded to the middle way, right? For example, let's say our Bodhisattva Gautama, before he got enlightened, right? He was practicing breath to torture himself. So when he breathed in, he suffocated himself. He don't want to breathe out. Yeah. So and when he breathed out, so he breathed out very hard, to damage his nostrils, his eardrums, and etc. So he does this kind of breathing meditation on purpose to injure himself, to torture himself. So this is one form of extreme kind of breath meditation. And another kind of extreme breath meditation will be tend towards greed. Right, earlier on, I talked about maybe you do breath meditation to heal yourself or longevity for whatever reason. So it's not connected to the goal, right? Not related to the goal, which is to overcome suffering. So again, this is a theological question. Some people say overcome suffering. So if I heal myself from sickness, also overcome suffering, all right? So what do you mean by overcoming, aging, sickness, and death. Right? Overcoming aging, sickness, and death. So if you look at the Buddha, as an example, right? So the Buddha, he got enlightened. So for 35 years, he's already in the enlightened state. He was walking around teaching. And throughout the 35 years when he was enlightened, he also experienced aging, sickness, and passing away, right? In the physical form. So what do we mean by overcoming this aging, sickness, and death, right? Is it a physical overcome or is it mental kind of overcome, right? Mental kind of overcome. Right? Is somebody saying something? Okay, we have the Q&A later. So let me finish this first. Okay, so when we talk about breath meditation or any kind of meditation, right? So if we want to do it in the Buddhistic manner, right, we should have the end goal in mind, right? So the end goal is to overcome, right, this suffering, transcend the suffering. So we have to understand, physically, right, there's still this suffering is going on, but mentally we sort of transcend. That means we are not affected, right? So there are certain, these are the training tools made use of. So breathing is one of them, right? Breathing is one of them. So similarly for postures, right? Postures. So when we sit down, stand, lie down or walk, right? So later we have the free time, then you do your own walking meditation. How do you walk? How do you walk? Is it like shopping, go jalan-jalan, you look around, this shop very nice, the product very beautiful, yeah? So, no, what kind of walking, right? So, if you have attended the previous retreat, right, the retreat from last week, right, I would emphasize first on the mental programming. Know the right thought, right? Non-greed and non-hatred. We program the mind correctly. So once the mind is in calm and non-clinging mode, then we extend to the different postures, standing, sitting, walking, lying down, right? So whenever we move or have a new activity, whenever we start to plan ahead on what we are going to do, or walk the next step, or move your body part, will there be a form of clinging, with the mind increase in stress or decrease in stress, right? So we are watching out for this. We are not watching for how to be walking in a certain speed, or standing in a certain way, or lying down in a certain maybe lion posture, or sitting down in a full lotus Instagrammable pose, or like in a Time magazine must be so nice in a sitting posture. No, right? So the emphasis is more on the mental posture. The mental posture, not the physical posture, right? So for walking meditation, for me, I wouldn't sort of regulate on the speed, right? I've seen different Thai forest monks do walking meditation. I've seen the Burmese style also. They are the slow ones. Some of Thai monks in the forest, they do very fast. They walk very fast. Sometimes they walk up and down the walking meditation path very fast, right? Like marching or brisk walking sometimes. So I won't sort of regulate your speed, but the whole idea is whatever speed you are walking, you have to think of what is the exertion. Is there any stress, any tension? It must be connected with the goal. So if you walk and you feel the desire doesn't reduce, that means something is wrong, right? So you need to adjust the posture. So when you walk, you need to adjust. When you sit, you also need to adjust the mental posture. So this is very important, right? So again, I give a few tips. So if a person is walking, actually this comes from the monastic rules also, yeah. So if you walk, for the eyes, make sure it's cast downwards, right? Sort of like gaze 45 degrees on the ground, right? It's not like shopping and I look around. So if you look at any Buddha statue or Buddha images, you won't see the Buddha, staring, looking upwards or looking, in different directions. Right? You see the Buddha statue or Buddha images, they gaze downwards. So it's the kind of artistic impression on the monastic kind of training, right? The monastic rules. So we have a lot of rules, like things like even when we go for alms round, when we walk, we have to look at our alms bowl, right? When some devotee want to give us food into our alms bowl, we also look at our alms bowl. We try not to, right? Look, oh, thank you very much, thank you very much. We don't do this kind of stuff. Of course, sometimes some people, they do not know the etiquette. No, they think we are very rude. So, for some people, we might need to do this. But for most occasions, we look at our alms bowl, right? So that's a reason, because we are training our mind, this attention, right? Not to run out. Of course, the mind, the attention will run here and there. But the whole idea is before it runs out, right? Then we can catch, oh, what is the intention of running out, right? You want to kepo, is this person a rich person? Is it a nice person? When you look around surround, is it a luxurious place, right? So why does this attention want to run there? So we're able to catch this mind, this attention, right? So this is one of the reasons why we cast our soul, to restrain the senses, Okay, so another thing to take note, if a person is doing walking meditation, so for the hands, we don't like swing around, we are not marching, the arms might distract you, so sometimes we put the palms together, we cross the palms either in front of our body or behind, right, in front or behind, so that in a comfortable way, of course, so that it doesn't create unnecessary kind of distraction. Right? So when you walk, ideally, either 10 steps and above, right? If you don't want to be walking 1 or 2 steps and you need to turn around in a confined room, that will be quite redundant. So find a clear path, that's not obstructed by people walking around, so you can walk safely and you don't have to care about traffic. Right? Find a comfortable environment. Walk 10 steps, then you can turn around and walk another 10 or over steps, right? So this is for walking meditation. And for the programming, right? Later on, I will guide you in the guided sitting session, and you can bring it to the walking meditation. So depending on what you want to do, actually, so you can do the directed face. So very popular in the forest tradition, or even a lot of maybe other traditions, the Mahayana traditions. If let's say their meditation object is on the Buddhanusati, right? Mindfulness on the Buddha. So in the mind, they always chant the Buddha's name, chant the Buddha's name. So even walking, they also chant the Buddha's name, right? So when they walk up and down the meditation path, they also, they do this chant. So the Thai tradition, they Butto, the left leg put, right leg toe, right? So they just Butto all the way. And sometimes for maybe some other monastics, let's say in my earlier years, sometimes I was given this assignment to memorize the Patimokkha, the monks' monastic rules. So we have 200 over precepts, right? Earlier on, you all just chanted the 5 precepts. So the monks, you have to memorize 227 precepts. So we have this interesting assignment. We have to chant and rehearse and repeat these precepts and practice them over and over again throughout the whole day. Even in walking, right? Doing our chores, sweeping the floor, we have to keep reciting and repeating the precepts to memorize them. So this is another kind of training, right? Another kind of training. So the mind can be fixated when doing any of the 4 postures, or you can make it undirected, right? Undirected. So this one is undirected will be, I think a lot of the maybe Burmese tradition, they might be familiar. So when they walk at time, right, they have to know the left foot, how it rise, how it fall, right? Feel the different sensations. So this is more like the undirected, right? So this is, again, we're still within the body, but not too undirected, right? That means when you move your left leg, you know your left leg, you move your right leg, you know you move your right leg, right? Then, of course, if you want to fully open up, know the surrounding, that kind of stuff, that would be, again, another kind of training required a more, how you call it, a calmer mind as a foundation before you totally open up, right? So this is a few kinds of suggestions, right? A few kinds of modes of practice. Okay, so same with whatever posture, sitting, lying down, standing, same. Because we are not training the body, right? In meditation, Buddhist meditation, we're actually training the mind. Training the mind. Because ultimately, we have to ask ourselves, right? At the moment of, let's say, death, or let's say if we are sick, in let's say in a sick bay, how to, how to suka, stand up and walk around. Sometimes if let's say we are really bedridden, a lot of tubes inserted in us, we cannot move around freely as we wish. So even in a fixated kind of posture, how to practice detachment, right? So this is a lot of them are mental programming. It's not the physical moving around. You need to move to be happy, then something is wrong. Okay, then number 3, same as the posture. So whatever you do, the same thing, right? Later, when we have our lunch, or for our own free time, rest time, same thing. Whatever activity we do, we have to be mindful. Okay, so number 4, right? Mindful of the body parts. Mindful of the body parts. So this one we're talking about the human biology and anatomy. So in the previous session and even most of our sessions, I only go through the external parts, right? The head, have the body, nails, teeth, skin, right? Just external parts, because these are the parts where we sort of see every day, right? So the complete practice of this Asubha meditation or mindfulness of the body is actually, a lot of parts, right? The internal organs, your bones, your muscles, flesh, your blood, all the liquid parts, and so on and so forth. So total, they classify as the 32 parts. In the science at the time, they split into 32 parts. So in modern science, you can even talk about the cells, your DNA, talk about the molecules, the atoms, and whatever not. So it's all a kind of perception. Right? So the whole idea is to be quite detached from the body, right? Be detached, not be attached to the body, right? Is the proper term. So I give an example. Let's say a surgeon, or sometimes even a forensic scientist, when they sort of open up the body. Maybe a funeral director, they want to sort of inject something in the body, do the makeup. So they handle body every day, right? Handle dead bodies or even live bodies. So they open up the body and they view the organs, view a lot of disgusting stuff inside. So for this occupation, right? So sometimes we, have to ask ourselves as, let's say, a practitioner. Now, these people, they see the body parts every day. Now, are they enlightened? Are they enlightened? So what is actually right mindfulness? What is mindfulness of the body parts? As maybe a medical student, they have to memorize the body parts every day, all the organs. They have to, before they take the exam, they have to visualize, they have to memorize, know all the body parts, right? So they are very aware of all the parts of the body, right? But it's not connected to the spiritual goal, right? Are they doing it correctly? Are they thinking in a way where they can reduce desire? Right? So a lot of successful doctors and surgeons, maybe they are, they're very rich, they have a family, have a big house, big car. So they still, live in this, we call it very mundane, very mundane lifestyle. I'm not saying a spiritual practitioner means that you don't have all these stuff, right? But internally, what is your frame of mind when a person see all these body parts? So this is food for thought. Okay, then the next one, 4 elements. 4 elements: earth, fire, wind, water. So previous session we talked about sensations, right? So the earth element being any hard or soft kind of sensations. So if you want to further elaborate, can be all the parts of the body that has solid parts, the flesh, your teeth, your bones, right? All these are solid parts. And then we talk about the fire element being the temperature, hot or cold, right? So nowadays we're very mindful of temperature. Wherever we go, we have to take our temperature, all the social distancing measures, right? So very mindful of the fire element. Then we have the wind element. So wind element is all the movements, fast or slow movements, can be the breath, or can be the gases inside the body, right? So all these are the wind element. And the water element, is perspiration, the sweat, the blood, saliva, right? All the liquid parts in the body. So mindful of the humidity, the moisture, right? So these are the 4 elements. And the last one, right? Stages of bodily decomposition, right? Stages of bodily decomposition. So this one nowadays, very hard to practice these stages of bodily decomposition, right? I'll talk about this later because now it's close to 10, right? I might have more things to say. So I'll continue it in the second part of the talk. So I've left some food for thought, right? So for stages of bodily decomposition, you can see in the diagram over here. Nowadays, not many, right? Nowadays is we call it cemetery meditations, where all the body are hidden underground or maybe already cremated, so you won't get to see all the different stages. I'll elaborate that further. So now we're going to move on to the guided session, right? Guided meditation session, right? Based on the timetable. Okay, so we first now find a comfortable sitting posture, right? And we can sort of close our eyes. Some of you in the Zoom are not ready, but okay, because it's a live recorded session, I think I'll carry on, yeah? Okay, so if let's say you're on the Zoom or in front of a computer, you're sitting on a chair, that's fine, because I don't emphasize a lot on the posture, right? You can do whatever yoga posture later, right? If you're comfortable on the chair, that's fine. And make sure your back is upright and not leaning on the chair, right? This is important. Unless you have a back injury, then you can, by all means, lean on the chair. If a person is too comfortable in their formal sitting, most probably they will fall asleep, right? Then end up sleeping meditation, right? No longer mindfulness. So once we find the upright posture and we relax our body, then we can close our eyes. And the first part of the meditation we are doing is on this visualization of our body parts, right? We call this the Asubha meditation in Pali language. So this one is basically to learn how to let go of the body. So first we are going to visualize the hairs, visualize our hairs of the head. So it's a bit like imagine like looking at the mirror, you look at yourself, look at your hair. Then an untrained person, right, will fall to the extremes, right? Either they have greed, or my hair is so nice, so beautiful, I like my hair, I like this fashion, then this is greed, right? So this one extreme. The other extreme is hatred. I don't like this hair, no, I don't like this fashion, why my hair so messy? This is another extreme. So when we practice right mindfulness, when we talk about the middle way, we're actually avoiding these both extremes. Right? It's not the 50% of both. Right? We try to avoid both. So what we do is using right thought, right? The opposite of these extremes to sort of counter them. So first we are using loving kindness to overcome this hatred. So we are going to wish all the hares well and happy. Right? So the phrasing in your mind is important. We don't go and wish my hair, right? We are going to wish all the hairs, right? Starting from all the hairs of the head. We wish them well and happy. And then we sweep them down, right, from head to toe. May every hair be well and happy. And all these hairs are subject to birth, aging, sickness, and passing away. So the hairs will grow long. They get dirty, oily, sweaty. And when it's dry, it cracks. When it's old, it turns white. And eventually the hairs will fall off. Every day we have lots and lots of hair falling off. So if you do this Asubha meditation, right, make sure you have both loving kindness and thoughts of impermanence. And one of the signs or symptoms, if you are doing it correctly, is that you should feel peace and joy, right? Peace and happiness. If any meditation you do, right, the more you do, the more stressful, the more anxiety, the more tension, then something is wrong, right? More clinging. You get further and further away from the goal, the objective. Okay, then we have another thought we can add in is thoughts of non-delusion. So we can ask ourselves, it's a self-reflection. Are these hairs truly self? Is it truly you? Can you tell the hairs not to go through this birth and death? So this is a self-discovery question, or maybe some Buddhists, they call it non-self-discovery. And the next part of the body, we are going to visualize the nails, right? Or the fingernails. May they be well and happy. And all the toenails. May they be well and happy. So the fingernails and toenails, may they be well and happy. And all these nails are subject to birth and death. So they grow long and they get dirty. They discolor, sometimes due to diseases or malnutrition. And they go through wear and tear, scratches, cracks, and they even chip off. So whenever we scratch on something, some of the dead cells from the nails also fall off. And then we can ask ourselves, are these nails truly self? Can we tell the nails not to go through this birth and death? If it is truly self, that means we can have total control, right, over the aging process. You can tell the nails stay healthy and young forever, don't grow long, so I don't need to cut the nails, right? So is it within your total control? Next, we are going to think of our teeth, all the teeth in the mouth, right? We wish all the teeth well and happy. So all the upper rows of teeth, may they be well and happy. And all the lower rows of teeth, may they be well and happy. So all these teeth are subject to birth and death. They change in shape and size. And they get dirty, change in color, all the plaque build up, and they turn yellowish, brownish, and when they decay, they turn black. And sometimes they have cavities, they grow holes here and there. And the teeth get shaky, and eventually they will fall off. And we can ask ourselves, are these teeth truly self? Right? Can we tell the teeth not to go through this birth and death? And the next part of the body, we are going to think is our skin. So the skin is the organ that surrounds the whole body. Yeah? So you wish all the skin well and happy from head to toe. So all the skin are subject to birth and death. Yeah, the skin will grow old, get dirty, oily, sweaty. It will wrinkle up. When it's dry or crack. And when there's skin problems, like skin irritation, and get itchy, get rashes, turn red, and boils and pimples. And eventually the skin will fall off. So every day we have lots and lots of skin falling off. Whenever we scratch or rub our skin, some skin will fall off. And then we can ask ourselves, are the skin truly self? Can we tell the skin not to go through this birth and death? And we are going to now feel the breath. So we are moving to the next phase of meditation, the breath meditation. So we feel the breathing. So in this time, there's no need to visualize anything using our sense of touch. So you feel below the nostril, above the upper lip. Right, one small area. Right, so try to develop this single pointedness, right? So there's no need to feel or get distracted with the rest of the body. So the whole idea is gentle attention, no need to force or use exertion, overexert the mind, right? Just gentle sensation of the breath, and let your in and out breathing be your natural reflex action. No need to purposely control, right? So whenever there's inhalation, we wish the breath well. Exhalation, we wish the breath happy. So important first step to make friends with the breath, right? So a lot of mistakes. Meditators, when they use calm down the mind, they'll force the mind. I want the mind to be still. So there's one thing is desire. So we are actually now focusing on the process to reduce desire, using loving kindness, reduce the desire of this hatred, the violent tendency to want to force the mind. So we inhale well, exhale happy. So in the mindfulness of breath steps, right, they mentioned about various kind of combinations, and breathe in long, breathe out long, breathe in short, breathe out short, and the different various combinations of long and short, right? So basically it's let it be natural, right? That means there is a reflex action, whatever long and short, no, we just see it as it really is. Yeah, don't have to purposely go and first step must be in long, breathe in long and deep breath, and breathe out long and deep breath. Don't have to. Yeah? And what we're going to do now is introduce thoughts of non-greed, right? So once the mind you think is relatively calm, then we introduce this thought. So the breath again is, and breathe in and out. They are very, we call this micro processes of birth and death going on. When breathe in and out, something is rising and passing away, right? Something is going through birth and death. So we are using the sensations of the four elements, and because the breath is invisible, so we use the sense of touch, right? The four different sensations. So the earth can be hard and soft sensations, fire, warm and cold, wind, fast and slow movements, and the water, moist or dry. Right. So the whole idea is when you breathe in and out, there's no need to purposely generate, right, these sensations. We just try to be a passive observer within that confined area. Right? Whatever sensation that arises, whichever is most obvious to you, then just take note of the birth and death of the element. So this is another important step. Firstly, to keep your mind awake. Then number 2 is part of the right reflection, and you help to promote detachment. The mind will have a tendency of clinging, and by doing this, we are practicing this detachment, right? Then we can reduce clinging, right? And the mind is observing changes, birth and death, rising and falling, or impermanence, whatever term you use it. Then the mind won't see, right, any value in investing. Every time you cling or invest into it, right, then it change. Like, what's the point, right? So the mind will sort of learn to let go. So when the mind learns to let go, then the mind will settle down. Yeah? When the desire reduce, and naturally the mind will calm down. So we first learn to be at peace with one point, right? We cannot even handle the breath, right? Don't even talk about handling your project or these relationships and whatever big assignments you have. We are actually training, our this mental habit, this mental tendency. We are not training the breath. So this same state of mind, and this same habit will be the same mind when you use it in your workplace, in your daily life, right? So when we watch this one small area, we are slowly training the mind, attune it to be at peace with whatever situation that arises. So once you are familiar, right, with settling down the mind, just by paying attention to one small point below your nostril, then we can extend this challenge, right? Extend this challenge by increasing this area to your entire body. Right, so instead of feeling one point below your nostril, and now we feel the entire body, right? Extend this awareness from head to toe. And then your challenge now is to not be affected by any of the sensations, any element, any changes of the sensations in any part of the body that arises. You just take note of the change, right? Don't have to react with greed or anger. Okay, so maintain this investigative mind of impermanence. And once you are fine-tuned, right, being at peace with the whole body, then the next extension will be the rest of your activities. Now, can you still be at peace? The mind still not cling in whatever activities you do later. Be going to the bathroom, going for a meal, right? Walking, standing, talking, right? So we extend this mental framework to all the other activities. So this will be the next challenge. So I leave it to you to explore, right? Because now it's about 10:30, right? So I'm going to have to sort of end this first part of the session. All right, then I'll see you back again later. What time is it? The next one? Is it 1 o'clock?
Yes, it's 1 o'clock one day.
Okay, all right. So yes, I'll see you back again at 1 o'clock so you can do your own self-practice or have a lunch, right? So even when eating your lunch also that's practice. So train your mind to be at non-clinging, right? Non-clinging state of mind. Okay, so see you all later. Okay,
Thank you very much,
sadhu.
Bhante. Sadhu,
Okay.
sadhu, sadhu. Enjoy your lunch.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Okay, now thank you, brothers and sisters, for joining. See you later at 12:45. I'll end the Zoom session now. You can follow the same link to join at 12:45. See you all later. Bye-bye. Enjoy your
Bye.
lunch.